This is a Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group podcast. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It contains no wisdom, very few facts, or life-changing epiphanies, and is only the opinions, hypotheses, and guesses of the podcast host. If anything of value is learned, it is by mere chance alone. Don't blame me if you suddenly think about something or anything in a way you hadn't thought about it before.
Man, I do think something's out here.
Sasquatch, the Murfreesboro Monster, Wild Man, large ape-like creatures spotted across North America.
There's one particular beach on a certain day I found 17-inch footprints.
Strange occurrences in the woods and fleeting glimpses of a large hairy man have left many searching for answers.
I went from being a complete scoffer to having to face something that I couldn't explain.
Different regions across the U.S. have different names for the creature. In Florida, it's called the skunk ape, but most know it as Bigfoot.
People say, well, it must have been Bigfoot. Well, I can't say that, but I also can't imagine what else it could have been.
If Bigfoot exists, and I believe he does, it's got to be within a quarter mile from us as we stand now.
Hey, all right, guys. Welcome to Sasquatch Random Line, Bigfoot Atheist Inquiry. You know me, I'm Sasquatch, a.k.a. Joe. Appreciate it, everybody, coming and joining us. As you can see, we are going to be talking about the documentary Searching for Skunk Ape, Florida's Bigfoot. And first, I want to say hello to the people that are in here with me in the chat. Cindy Finn, hello Cindy, welcome. I'm glad you're here. John Ayers, the Salt Man, there he is. Max Powers, hey Max, you're in this documentary too, man. Hey, glad to see you. Kevin Harder, happy to have you here. What else we got? You guys are having quite the conversation here in the chat. Angel, hello Angel, hello Raptor, and there's my buddy Leon from Bigfoot Okanagan. All right, guys. Well, let me bring on my guests. We're missing one right now. We're probably gonna have to do something here to rectify that. But let me go ahead and bring on my guests. We have Erik Swanson, and then of course we have Matt from Central Florida Bigfoot. All right, and we do have Brian come on. Do you think I need to resend you the link and then you can send it to him again, Matt?
Yeah, go ahead. But it's the same link I use, so he should be good.
Yeah, okay.
He's probably wrapping up dinner or something. He likes to come in the pool. You know, he's a cannonball kind of guy. He screams cannonball.
All right. Well, there you go. That's the link now. So we'll get Brian on here. So yeah, this documentary, I was watching it, and actually, I actually have to admit I watched it like 3 times, because I thought that's how good the documentary was, in my opinion. And
I think your opinion's right.
yeah, immediately I was like, right after watching it, I was like, man, I wonder if I can get Matt, because sometimes Matt's a busy guy, and it's not so easy to get him on a show. But it's when I saw the documentary, I was like, I should get Matt on something, because I haven't been doing a lot of shows here lately, because I want to put up something worthwhile, not just me blathering about how much this other shit is irritating me in Bigfoot world. And so I thought I should get him on a show, see if I could. And then um, out of the blue today, Matt messaged me and he was like, "So what'd you think about the documentary?" Wanted my opinion. And I said, "Well, here's what I thought." And I told him, I was like, "Hey, do you want to come on a show?" Because I thought it was something that needed to be put out there. I think this is a great documentary, Erik. Um, and so I wanted to ask you some questions to get right into it. So you explained a little bit about what got you, but tell the people here that I mean, you've been pretty interested in trying to film all kinds of stuff, weird shit too, and I think you mentioned something about the Loch Ness monster, or was it?
Yeah, well, I mean, just as a kid, I always was interested in the Loch Ness Monster and Stonehenge, things like that.
Yeah,
And then, um,
what particularly hit you and said, "Let me do a documentary about Bigfoot"?
um, I mean, it's just I like to just explore ideas that I'm interested in, but that also kind of have a sense of mystery. Like one of the other documentaries that I put out last year, but I actually filmed it about 15 years ago, was about mole people, which years ago I had always thought it was an urban legend. And then when I was living in New York City, I saw a guy walking down the subway tracks with a bag of clothes over his shoulder, like he was going to his home. And so I started going and exploring the tunnels and discovered that, oh wow, this is actually a real thing and not made up. Um, and I always had an interest in just mysteries and things like that. So I was on my way down to Florida and decided, hey, I've heard a bunch about the skunk ape. Let me try to learn more about it and see if I can meet some people on the ground and put something together out of it.
So, and there's our other guest,
There we go.
Brian, in the swamp.
How
How
are
you
you,
doing,
Joe?
Brian? All right, I'm doing
Hey
well, man.
guys.
I'm
Hey,
doing
Erik.
well.
Hey, what's up?
Sorry
So,
about that. We're in the middle of a bad thunderstorm here.
oh boy, oh boy. All right, well, we'll forgive you. We'll forgive you. So Erik, like when you decided, like you were like, Bigfoot, we're gonna do the swamp ape thing, and so I mean, what were your like? Hmm, how do I word this with the right word? Sometimes I got to pick out right words here. It was like
At least, at least you know big words, Joe.
my brain. No, they're not necessarily big words. It's how to put words together that makes sense. Because I got the squirrels up here running this thing train, so sometimes they get confused on which wheel they're on.
Well, at least you
Um,
think about it before you just blurt it out. So that's a good thing.
so, what was your goal, or what were you wanting to accomplish with the whole Swamp Ape Bigfoot documentary? And I'll add to that so you can answer. What kind of led you to picking out Matt, or did you have him in mind when you first thought of it?
Um, well, as I said before, I've always been kind of just into that sort of stuff, UFOs, things like that. And growing up and even still, like I'll give anything on those types of subjects at least 2 or 3 minutes. Most of the time, I can't get past 2 or 3 minutes on a lot of them, but as long as they're kind of talking about the mystery of it and celebrating the mysteriousness and not trying to come up with fake evidence or jump to conclusions that are a stretch. Um, I'll enjoy that sort of thing. And I feel like that's kind of been lacking a lot lately. So a lot of it is I kind of wanted to make the type of thing that I myself would enjoy watching, which is a lot of folks like Brian, like yourself, have these bizarre encounters that can't be explained, and just kind of let's hear the stories and enjoy and revel in the mystery of it, as opposed to trying to speculate. I love to speculate about what it might be, but not think that whatever the speculation is the right answer.
Hmm. Yeah, and from what I understand, I guess Matt did you reached out to Eric? Is that correct? He or
I
Eric?
didn't
No, I
even.
reached out to Matt.
I
Oh,
didn't
you
even
reached
know
out
Eric.
to Matt.
Yeah,
And
Eric.
then
Eric.
Matt, you said, "Hey, that's a great idea." If somebody outside the right,
No, I said, "Why me? Are you sure?" I haven't.
oh,
I haven't seen, nor have I found a Bigfoot, nor have I ever claimed it. So, I asked him, "Are you sure?" And I asked him, "What led you to me?" And I asked him, "Well, there's other people that are out there with more, filmatic, sensational stuff." I said, "We're pretty straightforward." And he said that's really what he wanted, was something serious and you know, not so sensational to the point of it being ridiculous. So I said, "Well, if you're sure, I'll do it." But because he asked me to go with him, and I said, I, had a situation where I don't go solo anymore. I have a bunch of guys that I count on, good guys that I feel comfortable with. Do you mind that I bring? We normally don't go out in a group like that, so that was a little different for
uh-huh.
just his film. It's usually Brian and I, or Ron and I, or Max and I, or me and Joey, or whomever. But or Stan. It's usually one or two people, and I only bring extra people along unless I'm trying to get eyes on something.
Hmm.
Like, hey, I'm thinking this. What are you all thinking? As a vetting process. And I've taken 3, 4 people to a sacred spot of mine, which is where the teepee is that Max and I found, just to get eyes on it. And 2 of these people I never went out with before, but they were friends of Ron's. And Ron said, I said, would they want to go? And he said, yeah. And I said, I'd like to get their opinion, because they're not in all this YouTube stuff. They're out there looking, and they've had an encounter of some sort. But I thought they would just give me a straight up, what is this? What are we seeing? What are we chasing? So I asked the same thing of Eric. I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah. And I said, I can put together a group that, 2 or 3 have had sightings. I never have. And I think you got what you want, would need. And I even mentioned other people in Florida. I said, but if you want to get the crazy side, here are some other names. And I threw out. So it was his choice all the way. All I supplied was the spot, the people, and the B-roll. Other than that, I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's there's several things that and why I rewatched this documentary so many times, because I could find myself reacting to this, and I get what you're saying, Eric, because that's exactly it, man. This is the type of thing that I want to see, right? This is something that it's like, look, I would rather see a whole bunch of this type of stuff, a group of guys being honest about what they're doing out there, not running around bumping into trees with Bigfoot on the brain and everything is Bigfoot, but some guys that are really researching. Now, I used to be, when I went out, and it's been a long time since I've been able to get in the field myself now. But I used to go out by myself, and I would have rather had at least another person or two with me, keep me grounded. Everybody keeps each other grounded. And so I would rather see this kind of thing where you guys are actually, you're not trying, it didn't seem to me like at all. You guys aren't trying to kid yourself
Mm-mm.
about anything, man. It's like it's not all this statements of, or some of these things where you see it's like, oh, what was that? What was that? What was that? What was that? I mean, you guys are out there, you're exploring nature, and if you see something, you investigate it, and you like for example, Matt, I like this as an example is when you were talking in the documentary about pareidolia. And you mentioned that time, and I saw that from earlier because I've been following you. You know, I've been following you for a while. When you saw something move along the game trail, and then you caught that picture, and then you figured out, oh crap, this is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we did a whole breakdown.
Anybody
of it.
else have been like fought tooth and nail? No, I saw something move. There was something there. You could see it here, and it was Bigfoot. Damn it! But you didn't do that. You actually tried to figure out what it was, and then you came to the conclusion, shit, it wasn't what I thought. Oh, did I just freeze up?
No, you're good.
Nope.
You're good. Oh, now you did.
Now I think you did.
There, I froze up, didn't I? So
There you go.
we didn't catch any of that I just said.
Yeah, we called it all. The audio was
Oh,
good.
we did. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet all of a sudden. Damn it. Because I think Brian is a little frozen because I haven't seen him move.
No, I'm just kind of in a stupor, I think, because I didn't sleep good last night.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the type of thing, and I'd rather see that all day long than somebody claiming, Bigfoot. So, but my thing is how'd you feel when you figured that out, Matt?
It hurts, but I kind of expected it. How many times I've gone out, and everybody knows I have a lot of videos on my channel, and there's only 2 or 3 videos where I have claimed, hey, something happened here. And one was in episode 17 where I was still Bigfoot on the brain, and I put up a super that says, am I zapped? Because I was using the language that I was learning through Bigfoot World. And this is the language when you start watching these channels that you pick up. You start picking up that Bigfoot makes structures. So I was heavily into the structures for a long time. But you eventually catch on. But in all of my videos, only 3 times did I have something, episode 13, 14, early on were these wood knock series where I got these 15 wood taps. 2 videos after that, the tree falls, the whole bit happens where I get disoriented, the tree falls, there's 3 owls, all this stuff is going on. And then in part 2, I realized going through footage that actually a viewer spotted it, that on this tree fall area about 90 yards out, there appears to be something sitting in what I would call a nest, because this is the language and terminology used watching Bigfoot World on YouTube. And so I called it a nest. And what did I do? I took someone out there with me to investigate it and said, could this be? And it was Stan from Bigfoot Mafia here in Tampa and Pasco also. And I took Stan out, and Stan's a very level-headed, great guy to bounce stuff off of. And I said, Stan, what do you think? And he goes, well, I wasn't so sure, but now that I'm seeing this breakdown of where you were and where it was and what happened, all he would give me was, it's interesting. I think something did happen. But again, kind of like what Brian says, something happened. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, stood up, it walked away, but I can't say it was Bigfoot. Well, Stan's very much like that. But that whole situation happened, and that's when that was the last time I went out solo, by the way. Yeah. It was episode 17 where I realized that it's probably not, I'm not a woodsman. I'm not the jack of all trades that can, I can put a tourniquet on. I can save myself. Okay. I can swim. I'm a WSI. I used to be a scuba diver. I've learned enough about bushcraft and field safety that I can save myself or who's with me. I can't do a chest tube like Brian. Brian can throw a chest tube in you. And that's why I'm with Brian. There's skill sets.
That would be a horribly last resort.
But I know, and I asked Brian, I said something to Brian, he goes, yeah, it's a last resort, but they hurt a hell of a lot. But anyway, that was the last time I went out solo, and things happen, but only in 3 videos have I had something move or movement that startled me that I put down under the unexplained. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was telling Erik. I'm not very exciting for you to try to make a documentary on. But then I thought, and I told you today, And the reason why I did the little piece after Erik released the film was, again, the reason why I did that, and I would never do that for anybody else in Bigfoot world, but Erik was outside of Bigfoot world. And I thought it would be, what kind of cool perspective would that be? Because when it airs, it's either going to end my career or give me a little boost. I'm dead ass serious. It's either gonna end me because, oh, your whole group is crazy. But I didn't even sit around. I didn't hear Brian's interview. I didn't hear Max's interview. I didn't hear Ron and Lori's interview. We, we all got real nervous a week before release.
Yeah.
I can tell you, Brian was nervous. Max was nervous. Ron goes, well, I didn't get on there, so I'm fine, And I went, damn, again, learning from the teacher, right?
Yeah, I'm telling Matt, this could go either way here. We
honestly are, but you know what? That's what this is about. I wanted an outsider. It's what Max Powers has always said. If you're going to have something vetted and look at yourself and look at piece of evidence and look at wood knots and tree structures and audio, why are we sending it to Bigfoot people? Because Bigfoot people are going to be biased. I don't care what they say. I don't care if you're with the Olympic Project or you with, group that I hang out with. We all have a bias, whether you know it or not. And I didn't know Erik. So I took a chance, and I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did, because I knew, looking at his other film, that this guy is a professional. He can tell a story. And that's really was it.
Well, I'm glad you did too, Matt. Thank you. Thanks again for you guys.
Absolutely, because as I said, these are the kind of documentaries that I look for now, because they're just too confusing. I'm like, Brian, I'm like you in a way, and I really appreciate something that you said. It kind of struck home when you were talking in here. You had said something along the lines of about when you were describing the encounter that you had of seeing something large. And you had said, well, something akin to, and I may be paraphrasing, I can't say 100% that it was Bigfoot, but I don't know what else to call it. And I've been in that same boat since, except for the difference between me is that I have come right out and said, yeah, it's a Sasquatch. If somebody said, did you see a Bigfoot? I've said yes. Now, of course, there's always that little part of me going, especially lately as I look around and look at things and still re-examine, because this only happened to me not quite, but it's coming up. August will be 3 years ago. And I still haven't figured out the whole scenario of what, went down. I just know that it did. It was real. But there's always that little point, since I don't have any other evidence, man, of what happened that day to me. I'm asking myself now, well, okay, I don't know what else to call it, but is that what Rasta, that's what I named him.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, is that what Rasta really is? Is that what a Sasquatch is, or a Bigfoot? Right. And so I appreciate that. And I'm like, yeah, see, that's the kind of questions that we're asking ourselves. Too many people out there are like, they already know what Bigfoot is. They know all this stuff about them and etc. And yet they don't give you anywhere to go, yeah, okay, yeah, that's true about Bigfoot. And then we got guys like me and you that are stuck in the thing about, well, I really want to know, but I don't, that stuff's not telling me anything, and that's why these documentaries I think are important to show and get out there to the public, of some guys that are like, look, we're not telling you that we got all the frickin' answers. We got a bunch of the same questions everybody else does, but we're trying to be as honest about this as possible. We're not out here playing, Bigfoot live action role play or whatever. This is, we're out here in the woods. There might be gators out here. There might be panthers out here. There might be like psychotic deer, right, Matt? Yeah, I told you, deer are dangerous, brother.
I've been learning a few things about animals that I didn't really realize.
Yeah.
And I got one queued up for you if you want to see it. Here, let me show you this real quick. I don't want to change the subject, but
No, that's great.
so we got a trail cam put out there, and let me show you this one. It's in there. Just bring it up.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There, kitty.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I've seen 3 bobcats in the wild in my life, and one of
Yeah.
those times was in Florida.
Right. Now,
Yeah, I
I've
remember.
heard them a lot. I've heard them a
Mhm.
lot. And, well, I'll tell you, the first time I ever heard one about peeled the skin off my neck, dude. I mean, it was scary, dude. But yeah, I hear them a lot. I don't see a lot in nature, and I've got one game trail camera picture of a bobcat in all the time I've ever been out in the woods and had cameras. Yeah, I got one. Got a
Well,
couple of pair too.
Well, this new reveal camera I have, it's a $149 camera with a $100 satellite connection. So as soon as that thing triggers 24/7, it's sending me thumbnails, and then from there I can choose to download an HD of the image, or I can go to video and download the video, and the next time the camera connects, it will send me the video file. So here's my predicament. That camera is at 1% power, and someone needs to go retrieve that. And now that I know there's a bobcat in that area every 2 days,
Yeah.
makes me just a squeak nervous.
Well, you can take this with you, Matt, and I mean, you can believe me or not, but
God.
bobcats. I don't think a bobcat's actually going to attack you. Most of them
No.
just run away from you.
Well-
But I don't want you to go, "Hey, Joe said it's okay," then go out there and all of a sudden, damn
Just
you,
make sure
Joe.
Brian's behind you.
Yeah. So Eric,
Yeah,
I did want to ask you, and this is just a little bit of. I'm not saying anything like are you get weird. What was your sense of the whole area? What sense did you get out in that area when
I
you
mean,
were filming the
honestly,
documentary?
it's
Do you think a large mammal like
oh hell yeah. I mean, it's funny when I first reached out to Matt, he and I had a video call, and I want to believe in Bigfoot, but I don't know if I do. You know what I
That's
mean? I
understandable.
haven't seen any evidence. But where my folks live, in 15 years of putting out game cameras, my dad has gotten 2 photos of moose, and we've never seen one in person.
Yeah,
And that's like a 7 foot tall at the shoulders and 1,200 pounds at least. Like this enormous animal could hide in the forests of upstate New York, and unless you get a tornado coming through tearing everything down, those forests are nowhere near as thick as the swamps in Florida.
yeah,
I mean, and it's crazy too. Like the one morning, not to be vulgar, but I got up before the sunrise to use the restroom behind a tree. And I mean, everything, again, it's not, I'm out of my element. I spent a lot of time in the woods in New York, but
yeah.
you can navigate by rocks, by hills, by mountains.
Right.
There, everything is just flat and palmettos. And, one palmetto looks like the next to me. I
Yeah.
got turned around. I had to just stand in the woods till the sun came up for 30 minutes till I could see, oh, that's where the campsite is over there. So it's like, not only do I see how something could hide, I see how somebody could get lost trying to find it too,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't see the trail 10 feet off of it many times. And
Yeah,
Eric,
it's crazy.
I have a snapshot of you on my game cam starting to walk out. It's hilarious because the fog, you also walked out in a total fog.
Oh,
That's
I don't know
right.
if you
Yeah.
knew that, but you're in total fog and you look like the rake. I don't know what the camera did, the fog or the mist on the lens, but I can see you're wearing shorts. So I can see you're wearing shorts, but if you weren't, it would have freaked me out because you were walking away from the camera and you look like the rake. But I'll have to send you that. That's a funny photo.
Yeah.
But I thought you also said while you were waiting that you finally heard one of us cough or something,
Yeah.
or you
Yep.
knew that was the direction of
Yeah.
camp.
So I was
That you
like,
got
oh, that,
switched
yep,
in.
that's what it is. That's right. I remember that now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think, easily it, it could, I mean, even in the documentary, thankfully, Matt let me use some of his footage, and the shot that he got of the buck rushing past him and Brian, I mean, you can barely see that. For one, it was moving insanely fast as deer do when they're running, but just the palmettos are so thick that that thing was probably what, 20 yards away from you, and you couldn't see the entire deer at any one point.
Yeah, and
Well,
then it just
Brian
got
would have
swallowed up.
if he would have left his camera on his head, like I told him.
Well, I can tell you right now, you can look right at a deer, and not see it 15 to 20 feet away from you, because yeah, that's personal experience. You can, and if it's not moving, man, look right at it and not even see it until it does move.
Oh yeah.
But there was something, and I just want to bring this up, and I don't know why. This just popped into my head, Brian, and so I have to let it come out.
Okay.
There was something that you said that I really liked. Something that you said in the documentary. You said something. I think it was about your grandfather. Whether he had ever actually seen one himself. Because could you? I mean, I'm not giving any spoiler alerts. There is a link to the documentary in the description for people to go to, so you can watch the whole documentary. But I found that very interesting, and it'd be easier just to get you to say it instead of me trying to search for that clip.
Well, he just would he would ask me, over the years, he would say, "Oh, so you're going out in the woods again, eh?" And he would never add anything more to that. And then as I started, when I got out of the military, I really enjoyed going to the woods because now I'm not in the infantry anymore. Nobody has to pull guard duty. When you get tired, you can go to sleep. You don't have to worry about, any type of danger or having to watch out for everything in the camp. So I really started going more often. And he got more and more, I guess, brazen with dropping hints what is a good way of putting it. And he would never come out and say anything, but he told me, he said, one day you might run up on something out there that is going to change the way you view the world. And I said, well, have you ever said anything? I said, Papa, have you ever seen anything out there? And he said, well, I ain't saying I have, and I ain't saying I haven't. That's what he told me. So but he grew up in the Tampa area back when you could get on horseback and ride for miles,
Yeah.
and barely cross a 2-lane road, So he's been in that area a long time.
Yeah.
So there's no telling.
Yeah. And so when you were doing this documentary and with these guys, and you were thinking about your encounter. Now there was something else I found very interesting about what you said was about a smell, and that you hadn't noticed a smell.
No, I did not.
And that was the same. I didn't either, And during my encounter, like I forgot. I'm sorry, I'm old, so I forget exactly. But apparently, from what I got from the thing, it was fairly close to you, right?
Yes. If I had stumbled toward it instead of down the trail, I would have ended up in its arms. I mean, that's how it was within like 10 feet.
That's even closer than me because mine was like he was at least 40 feet away from me. It was. I'm assuming it was a he.
Right.
Because I didn't see any breasts or anything like that. I mean, pretty much all I was focused on actually was the face. It was like weird, but
that'd be a first.
I never noticed the smell either. So I found that interesting that you said that in there. But when you were going through this, were you like seeing anything? Oh, I guess what am I trying to say? See, this is where the squirrels get confused.
I can relate to that.
We're trying to switch wheels. Have you seen anything out there with Matt? That's what I was going to try to say. And I think you have, because you have something that, okay, I think we'll all agree it's not totally definitive, but it's pretty good sign to me. I would accept it, and it would keep me interested enough in the area to keep looking. And that's that footprint, Matt, that you have, that you did the
Yes.
3D of. Now, you were there for that to see all that too, right, Matt? Were you? I mean, Brian?
No, I was not with Matt. Who was that with you?
That
it
was
Mike?
with Joey. That's when
Joey, okay.
Joey and I, Florida Lone Wolf and I was out, and I haven't been out with Joey lately. Like I said, we bounce around between, different skill sets, but I do have the footprint queued up here.
You did it in
And
3D, right?
yeah, and before you play this, there's a comment. No, there's a comment on Erik's channel about, because of the way Erik brought it up. So another footprint with no toe imprint or mid-tarsal break. And then the comment went on to say, 3 fat white guys out in the woods. What a joke, making a mockery of the whole thing. And, that's fine. But for someone to be, I don't think it came from the Bigfoot world viewer. I think it was more on Erik's viewers, maybe that he threw him a curveball, and they weren't, here they are watching the Bigfoot movie or documentary, and then they're saying, oh, great, another 3, and they just lumped us. This is what bothers me, is that there are so many people out there playing this BS game. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot in Florida playing this BS game, making every outing they go out, they have a Bigfoot. And I mentioned this to Erik. Hey, if you want to go out with someone who sees a Bigfoot every time, I gave 3 names. And I said, but if you want to see, go out with us, we're very serious. But I haven't seen a Bigfoot, but I've caught some things that are really weird. And I think I may have got, 2 things that I would question. I don't know what the hell it is. And so the way Erik did the footprint, he showed it and he did an outline, but this version wasn't in there. And again, Erik has 2 days with us to go out there and do something, and it's not appropriate for me to say, I got this piece that I don't understand. I got this piece of evidence that I don't know what it is. I got, it's not, he did it from his perspective of being inquisitive. And that's what I love about being outside the Bigfoot world, is how does Erik tie into this? And he brought us in by saying, he had a fascination. He talked about catching animals in the wild, and he shows what was that in the snow?
Oh, the pine marten.
Yeah,
yes.
And so he brings it in to 10 minutes into this, and I went, oh, shoot, I was worrying about this all week, and we're not even going to be in it, sort of thing. But he built us. It was like it caught me out of left field how he built us and brought us into his fascination, and then segued into us. And I thought that was great. But to answer that person's comment on his channel, this is the print, and how, and it's not even rotated upside down, because upside down, you do see it a different way. Max says he's arguing.
So let's take a look at this, because I thought, I am not an expert in footprints. I would never claim to be. I've seen some. I know what double bear prints look like. I'm very well versed with bear prints. This looks like a footprint to me. And while, hey, I can't immediately say that's Sasquatch, it certainly looks like it's a possibility. And that would be enough to keep me in that area for a bit, to look around.
And Joe, and what we're not seeing either is there's an impression that was 17 inches long by 8 inches wide. And I measured it twice. And I told Erik, that's the first time that I was out and I went, oh, holy crap. What is it? And I think I even said to Joey, I said, what else could it be?
Yeah.
And then someone made a comment like, oh, another big footprint where there's only one. Well, that's not true either, because the substrate where that happened in was one of those swamp runoffs where all the debris and everything's floating down this little bit and running back into the river, right? When the swamps go up, the swamps reside. That print just happened to be it. You could see Joey and I could see breakage all the way. We could see 2 or 3 steps coming out of the sticks,
Right.
solid plant in the mud, and we saw 2 or 3 going out. None of them, it was pareidolia at that point.
Right.
But and there are pareidolia in footprints.
Yeah,
Pareidolia
I think so.
in
Yeah.
every place. If you're looking for a big footprint in the bushes or on the ground, you're going to see it. You're going to find things everywhere.
Right.
And I did that with the pareidolia video I did. I went out in 1 hour and a half. I found 12 Bigfoot, in every shot I did. And it's easy to do. I've shown that. I proved it. And I just wish the viewers would understand that these people are seeing Bigfoot every time they're going out. They're not. They're pareidolia kings at best.
Yeah.
But this print, for the first time, I remember Leon asking me, how did you feel? And I literally was holy crap. Here I am, we're out Boy Scouting looking around. Yeah, we prepared to see Bigfoot. We hunt for Bigfoot. Yeah, but it's really 2 or 3 guys in the woods having a blast.
Right.
And discovering nature. That's what it is.
Right.
So we don't see Bigfoot all the time. We haven't seen it any.
Right.
But this one time I went, holy crap. I probably need to be more careful and take this a little bit more serious. But what I started to say about the print is it's 17 inches long. You're only seeing the imprint of it to about 11 or 12.
Yeah.
The rest of it, it's pushed down on the front like this, and the heel is up here. The heel is actually up here and comes back, and it's way back here. And so there would be a weird break right here.
Yeah.
And if I would have flipped that 3D over, you would have saw that. And I do still have it.
Right.
And the other thing I want to stress on one of Eric's viewers is that, about my group going out or anybody, the difference between what my group is doing, and this goes for Max and I'm sure Brian and myself, is any of our footage is available for another serious researcher to see. And I'll repeat that. Any of my footage of episode 17, where I think I got the creature, I've sent that out to be vetted. I've sent my howls out to be vetted. I've sent my footprint out to be vetted. Am I going to send it to some jerk that opens up a comment with an attack and saying we're lying or we're hoaxing? No. But if anyone in the scientific community or professional world that has some analytical skills to look at what I have, all you have to do is email me at matt.larson@mac.com. I'll put it in a Dropbox and you can see it. Now, do that to any other of these researchers in Florida that are claiming this crap. They're not going to send you crap. They're not going to send you raw film. They're not going to show you their metadata. They're not going to show you anything. That's the difference between what I'm doing as a photojournalist. And it will always be that way.
Yeah.
So I'm off my rocking horse, but some of those comments, I can take bad comments.
So box.
But, they see one video by Erik and then they attack, and they don't go look at the body of work. They don't see the growth I've gone through, and they don't see where I've gone through when I went to doing videos and everything was a possible Bigfoot to let's start the corridor series. Let's get serious and try to make a documentary. And that's what I'm doing. You're seeing my cliff notes. You're seeing my handwritten journal in video of what the documentary will probably be. You're seeing what's going to hit the cutting room floor every time I go out, because I thought people would want to see that.
Yeah.
But now I'm to the point of I don't care if they see it. I don't feel the need to show it anymore.
Yeah.
Because of people like that who just don't understand what we're trying to do. We're giving you the notes. And I will make a documentary. But if you want to just see the documentary of the juicy parts, I can stop. I don't need this crap. And that's really where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. Sorry,
I don't need to be public. I don't.
Sorry, I'm new to the whole live stream thing, so I don't know how to respond to people in the chat. But I'm going to agree with Jerry, who says you're wasting too much time on them, Matt. Because I'm going to tell you from some of my other videos. I mean, a lot of these people probably aren't even watching the entire video before they're commenting. I had people accuse me of getting a homeless guy kicked out of his spot 10 years after the man passed away. It's like I posted my video 10 years after the guy died. People are in the comments section telling me that I got him kicked out of his home. And it's like he's dead. You know,
Yeah.
rest
That
in
takes
peace.
a lot of
But
talent, Eric.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm
That's
not
I
a
think
time traveler.
I think what Jerry's point may be though is that Matt, I think you should concentrate on those of us like, and I'm not saying that I'm anybody special that you should continue doing this for, but people like me, people who are out there that are really just, we don't want the fluff, we don't want the bullshit, we just want the research and seeing the process and seeing if you can come up with something in a logical, objective, scientific kind of way, man. That's what you should concentrate. Don't worry about the people who are like, oh, this, that, because there's really nothing you can do about that. They're not going to accept anything. But those of us who are out there that know we want to stick to a certain method, you're doing it that way, man. And so I think that I will constantly. I'll still be following you, man, because I think that you're on to something. I don't know what. I don't know what, man. Maybe there's no Bigfoot out there, but maybe there are, man. I mean, there's things that I've seen in your stuff that makes me go, well, yeah, there's a possibility. There's something out there, and
Well,
it would be great to see you be able to get whatever it is on film, man.
hmm
You know?
well, even looking at structures, I mean, you all know. See, I'm also approaching this as a fine artist. Also, I do black and white photography. So when I found that there were structures involved, and I've always shot the forest, and I've always shot interesting shapes and lines and nature. So when back in the day, I started watching a channel that's high on the Richter scale of BS, but they talked about structures all the time, and I really, really liked the structures. So I never really, I mean, I knew from day one that these aren't all Bigfoot. I know it's bushcraft. I know it's two sticks falling. I've seen sticks fall out of the tree in my backyard and stand straight up. And there's no weight behind them. So what? A Bigfoot followed me home and stuck it in my yard. Other channels are saying crap like that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
everybody's out there going, more Kool-Aid, more Kool-Aid. Yeah, tell me more. He followed you home. It's like, stop the BS.
Yeah.
So I realized that early on that, things happening and you can explain it. So I have moved past thinking structures or anything. Max and I get into this all the time. He's been telling me, and it's funny because I think in episode 1 of The Corridor, I go to put back this crucifix or devil emblem or whatever
Oh,
that
I
I
remember that. Yeah.
right.
The thing. Yeah.
And Max goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "It's at the very beginning." And I said, "I'm going to put this back." So I went, "Hey, Max, there's an X across the river. Not that it matters." And he walks up to me, puts his hand in his pocket. He goes, "Matt, trees fall in the woods all the time, and what do they make? X's." It's just like Stan saying, "That was a squirrel." I went, "But you don't know that. Shouldn't we go back and investigate it?"
Yeah. Yeah.
What if it was a Bigfoot moving a palm? I don't know, but I continue to shoot the structures. If anybody follows me on my Instagram, I'm all about structures and different things I see. And there's only a few that make me scratch my head. I do have a clip of 2 clips if you want to see it
Yeah.
of a teepee we're investigating now. And
Yeah,
this is
because and that's a good lead in because everybody knows my deal on tree structures. I'm not saying that Bigfoot doesn't do that or can't do it or anything else. I suppose it's possible. For me, I've never seen anything that fits that description of evidence when it comes to that. I haven't found anything that is exclusively concordant with the
yeah,
conclusion Bigfoot built this when it comes to tree structures. I have seen some weird stuff out there that
yeah.
I don't know if you could call it building, but I can't explain it by nature. Now, that may just be my fault. And this is one of the things that Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. So I think we should play that thing because
Well,
it is.
let me set it up. In
Yeah.
episode 6, Max Powers and I find this after getting. Can I say we got lost? We got lost in the corridor. But anyway, it turned out to be an 18,000 foot step day, and luckily it was 60 degrees and we didn't die. But anyway, we walk out on this power line and we find a structure. So we're looking at it. It's way too big for Bigfoot to push a tree over. But when I walk up to it in episode 6, there's a clip I really should have sent Erik, but it's basically a shot of me looking up and I said, Max, if this is natural, we've been looking at structures wrong all along, because if this is natural, everything we've ever seen has been natural. It's that type of a structure. So here's another clip on it where I bring back 3 people outside my normal group just to try to get some feedback on, guy, dude, you're totally delusional. But this is I got 2 little short clips, like 30 seconds. Let me just try to find it here. Present video, see if I can go right to it. Okay, you got to bring it up, I think, when it shows.
Yep, there it is.
Probably.
And then
It darn sure wouldn't have been big enough to catch a tree falling, that's for sure.
it's 4
Well,
trees.
that's my point. That's where I was going with it. But then, could it catch a tree that big? Like now, it would catch it and probably hold it, but back then,
Right.
it would have snapped it in two. But if it was pushed and not fallen,
Yeah, just leaned up against it.
pushed just enough to touch it, but that's what it looks like to me, without having Bigfoot on the brain. But because, like I said, if that's natural, I haven't seen a better one.
That's one. That's definitely one for a statistician, because figure out the odds of that happening.
Now,
And then we go on to really pick on ourselves even more. But then there's another clip, and I want to show this one because, this is something I heard you guys say in chat all the time, that it's okay to not know, right? We're trying to figure this out.
I don't know. But I can tell you there's nothing else like that out here. But this tree, I mean, think about it. 20 years ago to have that structure next to this majestic oak, side by side. I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is.
Standing them back?
I thought the 3 of you were over there discussing something.
No, I was just chatting here. It's just crazy.
It really is.
Yes, Heather, this
It's
is your
just
trip.
one thing Max said was, you know what we didn't do, Matt, because we were so tired, is that we never pushed in and just looked around. Like, is there anything happening?
Right.
There isn't.
Is this something marking the edge of something?
Yeah, it's like Stan said, it's totally abnormal just to be sitting here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the type of things that I'm looking at too, like, everybody's going to look at weird shit in the woods. And I've seen weird stuff that I'm like, dude, I just, I can't explain that naturally. But, I've gone to using the term Bigfoot of the gaps. I mean, in religion, they have God of the gaps arguments. In this one, it's a Bigfoot of the gaps for me. So when I can't figure out something from a naturalistic point, I can't just slap in, Bigfoot must have done it. And that was a good example of that right there, of not just be like, well, Bigfoot must have done it. I don't know what did it.
Well, here's my thing is that we've been back to this 3 times trying to really look at it. And what's really not shown is the best shot of it is in chapter 6 of the quarter when Max and I are standing under it. The base of that is 30 feet. Okay. So it's huge. It's a lot bigger than you think it is. And the base of that majestic oak has fallen right next to it. Okay. So oh God, I forgot where I was trying to go with that. But all of us have looked at that thing. And I think what we're trying to say is that day, Stan pushed out one direction, went 100 yards. Heather's in the chat. She was with us. I didn't know them very well. I brought them to this special place because I wanted someone to tell me that this was just 100% natural. I don't believe any of us said, like Raptor was saying, that's just 4 trees being blown over by wind. There is nothing touched anywhere around it like that. And I can't say any more about the environment because it may give the spot away, but it is about 30 yards off a power line. It is probably 50 yards from a creek. And it's very close to other phenomenon of what would be happening 50, 60 years ago that I'm not going to go into because it's part of the place that I promised someone I would never say where it was. Yeah. And that's where I am with my research. I did not take Erik here. I took Erik to a place where I knew we could camp, where we could drive in, and where we could work a section of the corridor. The corridor is 56 miles long, guys. It goes all the way up into the preserves and swoops back around the USF and goes all the way out in the Green Swamp. And I'm hitting a lot of those areas, okay? So I'm not giving anything away. But then again, you got to understand, we're hitting these places using e-bikes. We're using kayaks. We're walking in on a trail. We took Erik on a trail. We didn't really leave trail because I knew as a filmmaker, what he was dealing with equipment-wise. We were prepared for that. Brian and I, the month before, 2 weeks before, flagged a trail a mile out along the river. And what was funny is we started looking for the flags in one clip, and we couldn't find them, and we were 10 feet from them. Mm-hmm. We couldn't see our own flags. And so the game plan was to take Erik or, my buddies, Hellbent Holler, to take them out there. If they made it to Florida, this is a place where I want to take them. And it goes down into an area where it is no man's land. I mean, there's an alligator down there. It looks like it ate a Volkswagen Beetle from the 70s. And I am not bullshitting you. That thing is 20 foot long and probably 6 foot around. And I've seen it multiple times. I have pictures of it. You don't want to run into that guy. It's pretty close to the Max Powers camp where we're going to put. Oh, darn it! I blew it. I didn't want to tell Max about the gator.
Well, I was about to ask Erik. How do you feel about the gator? Do you have an interest in doing more Bigfoot documentary, and especially since this would be an awesome series. I'm not trying to say that,
I mean, I think I would. The funny thing is, one of the things when Matt, when I first started looking before I had reached out to Matt, watching some of his videos, and then when I spoke with him, he asked me, "Oh, why'd you pick me?" And I told him and Brian were in a canoe in one of the videos. Brian goes, "Oh, look, there's a gator over there. You want me to get closer to it?" Matt goes, "I don't want anything to do with it." I'm from New York. I'm like, I'm with that guy. This is the guy I want to talk to. Yeah. I love all animals from a safe distance. Up here in New York, whatever. I don't necessarily want to run into a black bear in the woods, but even if I do, I know how to handle it at least.
Right.
Like
we don't have to worry about gators here.
Yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah, just stay out of the sewers, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a bunch of malarkey.
Well, they found one in Prospect Park in February.
Yeah. The thing is that I'm not saying that there's never, because people do. They have like flushed baby alligators down and stuff and all that stuff, and they can survive for a little bit. But the winters, they'd never make it through a really bad winter. They'll die. There's no doubt about it. But yeah,
they're not good hibernators, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No.
But to loop back to what you were saying, Joe. I mean, I find the stories fascinating. Years ago, it's another cryptid, not necessarily Bigfoot, but one of my cousins got married. His wife was from British Columbia, and so we flew up there, and it was right on Lake Okanagan where they have Ogopogo. And after about the second day, my sister finally hit me. It was like, stop asking everyone that you see if they've seen Ogopogo. And I'm like, I, I, I mean, I was looking, staring out at the lake, but I didn't expect to see it. But I was like, I might see someone run into someone who has seen it, and I would love to hear that story.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, I have a whole document going to just various notes, tons of stuff that I had thought maybe, before I had even started filming with Matt and Brian and Max and Ron and Lori, that, oh, these are great ideas that maybe I'll make it into the documentary. And, just as I actually started diving into it more, as opposed to just as a fan of, these stories and other people's documentaries and, in search of and things like that, I didn't realize, like, oh wow, how many different stories and cryptids and different regions, they all have their own local names for it. Like out by where you are, people tie them into the stone giants from Native American legends.
yeah.
Like,
The Iroquois, yeah, they call them the
yeah.
Utnet Yahe. Yeah,
So it's like, yeah, all of those types of things. I love all of that.
yeah,
Like up by um where I spend a lot of time in the Adirondacks, there's the legend of the flying heads, and it's like the lake is right there where that supposedly happened. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm I'm a sucker for all that stuff.
Well, I try to get up to the Adirondacks at least once a year, and I know that's a long shot of ever getting any activity if you only go just once a year. I could go, up there for years in a row, and if I'm only going once, I may never. But there's a lot of reports that come out of the Adirondacks too about these Bigfoot Sasquatch critters, man. Um, and I like I said, I like to go there to camp at least once a year, if even if I don't do anything about searching for Bigfoot there. But then again, it's always in the back of your mind, no matter what. If you're going camping, you know, even if you go camping with just the intent to just go camping, there's always that. At least for me, I'm always like, okay, is there
Well, I
any
found,
footprints around or anything? I mean,
I mean, I see wildlife way more when I'm not looking for it than when like I'll go
Hmm.
out hiking and
absolutely.
see a whole freaking herd of deer, and then opening day of deer season, like they all moved south for the winter or something. I don't know where they went.
Yeah, yeah. It's 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 funny here in New York too, though. But the wildlife. I mean, down in Florida, like you guys got snakes and you got monkeys now, and you got, and I mean, you got some big ass snakes down there that were never supposed to be there in the first place, but now they're there. And then you got alligators, man. And I think don't you guys even have a type of crocodile down there too?
Yes, yes. Mainly in the very south part of
Yeah, and
not.
up here, us sissies up here, all we got to deal with is black bear, maybe moose if you're in the right part of the state, because they're not all over the state. But and that's about the biggest thing you have to worry about. Maybe some cougars if you're in the certain areas. They say that there's not a breeding population here, but I figure if there's cougars that are in the state, they're breeding, man.
Well,
Well, we
You
got
sure.
you guys
not
got all that shit
necessarily
to kill you, you
the
know.
further north you go, the less snakes you get. But like in the Catskills and stuff, you got to watch out for rattlesnakes and copperheads and stuff like that too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's like that's why, Eric. I mean, I'm surprised. You went down to Florida. I've been down to Florida several times. I mean, I actually lived down there for a little while when I was a young man.
Hmm.
But we call Florida America's Australia, right? Because everything down there, as far as I'm concerned, and the wildlife down there, every last bit of it is just there to kill you. If you
Okay.
go into the wrong bush, man, they're
Yeah.
just kill you. Except for maybe if there's skunk apes down there, I don't think they're bad for you, but you know, gators, they got this like little tiny brain. They don't care. They'll eat you. But
Well, even
Hey, Joe.
don't you guys have the brown recluse spider down there too? Like
Yes. Yeah.
oh,
that
they got
terrifies me
every
too.
dangerous ass
Yeah,
shit
like
down there.
My nephew died from that. A
oh
bite.
wow, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh
From
wow.
what? From
Brown
a
recluse
recluse?
spider.
Oh no, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
that has to be treated right away with aggressive antibiotics because if it gets a hold, if it gets an infection, a deep infection started, it's really hard to knock it back down.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, in the
Yeah.
private chat, I'm throwing you some questions we're missing. One about for Erik or maybe even Brian about Nephilim.
Oh yeah, I kind of wanted to. Yeah.
Ignore
Okay.
them.
All right. Fair enough. You guys want to deal with it? You can deal with it.
I mean,
Um.
Throw you in
I
the hot
know
seat,
only
Brian.
cursory about that. Like for me, one thing that I thought, and it's kind of the way the documentary is presented. Also, is that I've always been interested in a lot of, I guess, kind of paranormal and stuff like that, and cryptids and all of that. But I mean, these guys told me some theories about Bigfoot that I had heard. I think I'd heard the Nephilim thing before, but like the glowing orbs and portals, I had never heard any of that stuff before, which I don't know. It's interesting to me, but again, it's all like I don't know. I I think that the idea of an unknown creature, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's the Loch Ness monster, or creatures supposedly in other lakes here in the U.S. and other parts of the world, I think that that's fascinating, and I find that within the realm of believability. And not saying the Nephilim thing isn't believable, because
I am.
as I mentioned before the show and then in the documentary last year, I mean, I saw a glowing orb fly in front of my car. I have no idea what it was. It was wild looking, and you know, but I don't know. Maybe there's an ordinary explanation.
Yeah, I like the will o' the wisp thing that you put in there because that's what we used to call them. I'm an old man. Yeah, we would have
Yeah,
Same
done
here.
something like that
Same
that's what
here.
called
I had always heard of him
will o'
as.
the wisp. I've never associated with Bigfoot because I don't have any evidence that it goes along with Bigfoot. But um, there's a question that is a good question. What were your thoughts on Bigfoot before you did your documentary compared to now?
Um, I mean, it was another one of those things where, like, I always, I guess, entertained maybe the possibility of it. And kind of like I was just telling the story earlier about Lake Okanagan, where in Lake Champlain, there's supposedly a lake monster that folks have seen, supposedly something living in the Hudson River. Um, and I mean, I've certainly seen weird rogue waves and stuff without any boats anywhere nearby. But I've never seen any signs of an actual animal. And so maybe that's something that could be indicative of something under the water. But, there's also been times where people have actually seen whales and porpoises and dolphins swim, 50 miles up the Hudson. And maybe they're doing something weird that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've always entertained the idea, and I like the stories. Now, I still, I mean, I want to believe that it might be true. And kind of what I lean towards now is like after hearing like Brian tell me his story, and Max from talking to him, and Lori and Ron, it's like, I don't know, kind of to touch again on what Brian said. I don't want to say that it's Bigfoot, but I certainly believe he had a bizarre experience that he can't explain, you know?
But it just since because I was going to mention that because I was going to say that I noticed in the documentary you pretty much come out and say, well, yeah, I believe these other people have experienced this thing, and it's fair enough for you to obviously it's fair enough for people to say I don't know right about Bigfoot or
Sure.
not. I'm giving it a possibility. So, but given that before you heard Brian or Max or anybody, um, has that just added a little more info that kind of makes you give it a little more of a possibility and
I would
a
say,
little more of a curiosity now to find out that if we're all delusional or not, I
well,
mean,
I'll say that definitely from after meeting these folks and making this documentary, um, you guys are, I don't want to say the first, like, certainly I've met a lot of people who I believe are credible and sane who have seen UFOs. You guys are the first group that I want to say not, I don't want to say crazy, but essentially crazy who have seen Bigfoots. Like a buddy of mine is also a filmmaker, and years ago I was helping him with his documentary he was working on, and it was, I mean, it touched on everything: UFOs, Bigfoots, mind control, time travel, and it's super cool film. If anyone's into that, I hope you don't mind, give a shout out. It's called
no, not
Montauk
at all.
Chronicles. It's on YouTube. But anyway, one of the guys in that, um, I mean, that guy, I believe something happened to him, but I feel like he also, whatever happened to him, kind of rattled a couple wires loose. And one time, he was telling me he saw a Bigfoot, and I was asking, well, what did it look like? And his response was, well, it looked like a Sasquatch. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen one. So I was hoping you'd describe it to me, like, and so it's always been that kind of response that I've gotten. Whereas these folks, I appreciate that, they understood, like, hey, this guy hasn't seen it. He doesn't, I'm not fully immersed in the world, so you got to treat me like I'm a novice because I kind of am. I know the broad strokes, and I've watched a lot of various TV shows and whatnot about it, but they all kind of are playing insider baseball to some degree too, where they're assuming all these details.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Don't feel bad about that because look, I've been immersed in these rabbit holes, online Bigfoot rabbit holes, for like probably the last 7 years, and I've been interested in this since I was 14 years old, and it's just been a pretty much a hobby from that time, running around the woods. So don't feel bad about because I've been in it for a long time, and I don't know jack shit about Bigfoot, man.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what that thing was. Was it really a Bigfoot? Is anybody coming up with any evidence of these creatures? You know, um, etc. And that's all and I'm not looking for people to blow smoke up my ass with big narratives. That's why I like it that somebody like you, Erik, can come in, collaborate with Matt, whereas you're not immersed in all this stuff, and you can do a documentary like this that isn't all of that. Don't go away. I don't go away with it feeling like, man, they're just blowing smoke up my ass. And so, just we got a little bit left here. I would like to go ahead since they seem to want to do this, but I'm going to preface this. My own personal opinion of this is it's all nonsense because I don't see any evidence of it whatsoever. So I put no credence to any of this at all. But I think, Brian, somebody wanted to get your response. Apparently, Joseph Reynolds. Thank you for joining the chat, Joseph. Says you're fooling with the Nephilim in Scripture, where the following mix to genetics and everything in like the book of Jude and the book of First Enoch is true. Now, I don't know why that's directed at you, but
It's
apparently you may know something about this. I don't know.
well,
Just a little bit.
it's possible that they may have heard on Matt's channel or something before where I talked. I am a preacher.
That's fine.
I've been divorced before, so I don't feel I'm eligible to govern a church, to lead a church. So I have never. I was offered a church once. I'm a Bible scholar, and when I first heard this, I was kind of stunned, really. And so I did quite a bit of research into it. The problem I have with the Book of Enoch is if you believe any of it, you have to believe all of it. You kind of get what I'm saying? It's like you can't pick and choose. If this is going to be your base for reality, then you can't just pick pieces of it. Either the whole thing's true or you can't believe any of it, even though some of it may be true. It's kind of like people who hoax, it's like, yeah, well, this was a hoax. Maybe this was real, but how much credence can you give that, because they've already set the bar kind of low on that, So the deal with Enoch is they're in there talking about 40-foot giants, and stuff like that. I can't believe that. And there's also other things in the book. I haven't really studied it, but just going through it, I have read it, and there's a lot of discrepancies between that. You either have to believe that or the Bible. It doesn't correlate, both of them together. This could be a really long discussion, and when I get my channel up, Matt keeps pushing me. I'm going to do a multi segment on this video on this, because it's just too much to sit down. I mean, you could sit down and literally have an argument. One of my spiritual mentors, we actually talked about it, and we sat and talked for well over 3 hours. So nobody's going to sit there and watch a video that long. So I'd have to go point by point. But basically, I can start off by saying that nowhere in the Bible can you prove that the angels are the sons of God. He never refers to them as the sons of God, except when Christ is referred to as an angel. Then, of course, he is considered the son of God. But angels are created beings. They are not the sons of God. They are neither male nor female. They neither marry nor are they given to be married, and they cannot procreate. So to think that the Bible calls people who are following God's calling the children of God, and he calls the ones who don't either the children of the devil or the children of the world or the children of men. And so when you look at it that way, what it says to me is that you've got the children, the sons of God, who would have been God-fearing, God-respecting people who came into the daughters of men. And it never works out that you're going to sway a relationship into the more conservative side, if you know what I'm saying. If you've got somebody that's got a wild belief and somebody who's got a very conservative belief, at the very least, you're going to meet in the middle somewhere, and you're going to throw somebody off track.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it's saying. There's also another thing about the DNA, which it surprises me because I haven't seen anything credible as far as DNA.
Making up a little bit there.
It's got a way to determine that they have maternal human DNA and paternal ape DNA, or whatever they call it, paternal DNA. That would mean, you get half of it from your mother and half of it from your father. So if you've gone more than one generation, you no longer get half the DNA from your mother. From the original mother. So what they would have to be doing is still to this day, every one of these things that is conceived would have to be conceived through a human female in order to have human maternal DNA, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I'm not real well versed in like DNA and genetics and stuff. I try, but it's a little beyond me. But I kind of get the basics of it, and I'm learning more and more every day because
it just becomes more blended as the generations go down. So if we're talking about from 6,000 years ago or whatever you believe, you know, by this time it would be pretty darn hard to figure out that the woman, you know, that there was a maternal human woman
Right.
as the mother, unless they are now, I mean, like I said, they would have to be continually reproducing through human women right up to the present day.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Well,
Hey,
yeah.
Joe, real quick. So
Uh-huh.
this is awesome because Brian will go into these all the time when we're out, right? And so when I was looking, this is great because when I was looking for a clip to send to Erik, and I did not even see it until last week, I haven't even let Brian hear this yet. He is on this same topic, and we're rowing down the river, and something on the bank goes, hits a palm, and there's two steps, loud as can be, hits the palm, and I'm like being nice, and I'm letting him finish this story that he just told, and I go stroke, and I went, well, that was interesting. That sounded big, and we're looking at the bank the whole time. But when I'm getting ready to send the clip to Erik, we were being followed on the bank for 45 seconds before it hit the palm. So something followed us for 45. This is where we took Erik. So something followed us for 45 seconds. Then the crash of the palm, step. And we went, well, that was interesting. We're talking, and on headphones, I can still hear it moving. It was moving along the bank with us. I'm not an animal expert, but to me, that's actually following us. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I didn't scream Bigfoot. I just called up Brian last week and I said, hey, you know, I was getting ready to send Erik this clip, but, you know, something was following us on the bank. You know, when we heard that crash, he goes, yeah, I went for 45 seconds before. It's about a minute. You can hear this thing moving with us at the same pace of the canoe.
So obviously something was interested in the whole Nephilim narrative. It must have been.
That's how you just got to tell your stories, Brian, and that's how they come out.
Scratching it just a tad there, but I would have no doubt that it was some kind of animal, at least that was at least interested because it heard human voices. You know, we don't know.
It just seemed kind of strange to me because, on a serious note, because normally you would expect it to either turn and go the opposite direction or turn perpendicular and head off into the wood line, you know, if it was that close to us. But
that
was just
I'm going to make a clip of this.
Sometimes it's hard to explain an animal's curiosity because sometimes they do things that you don't expect them to do, and you know that's how I'll bring it up again because it's funny now. It wasn't funny when it was happening, but I've gotten charged by a buck, and he had a pretty good size rack. It was at least an 8-point buck, man, and I was not expecting that kind of behavior out of a deer. And his curiosity, I don't know whether he was in rut or there was some hormones running around that were causing him, but some reason his curiosity of me got to the point to where he was not afraid. And he was like, and I didn't see him at first until I came around this one tree, and then there he was, and he was staring right at me, and I was like, he's not moving, and he's kind of like looking at me, not moving, and I'm like, is he gonna stamp the ground because I'm not moving, right? I'm like, he might not see me if I don't move, right?
Right.
And so usually a lot of times deer will stamp, right? To see if they can get a reaction to tell what they're looking at. And stupid me, he didn't make a move. He just stood there looking at me, and I'm the one who messed up. And because I made a slight move and I said, what you going to do? Kind of like that, right? What you going to do? And that was when he's like started this snorting and like what I would call barking. I never knew a deer could bark, man. But he made these like barking noises, dude. He lowered his head and he came at me, man. And I was like, I was trying to do. I just had to get trees between us and everything I could do to keep this deer from attacking me.
Hey Joe, I was far more manly when Brian and I was rushed by a buck. I loaded it for you.
Oh,
I was
hey, there you
so
go.
manly in this.
He goes, well,
Whoa, a deer.
what was it?
Whoa!
Are you running? You took your camera off?
Yeah, I turned it off. Dang it.
Oh, my
It was
God.
funny at that point, but a few seconds before, it was not funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
But yeah,
like
there's no
you,
tell
I didn't
about
see him,
curiosity.
but I heard a stick break. And then when I turned my head, that's when he saw me. We made eye contact. I mean, eyeball to eyeball for like 3 seconds. He came up both front legs off the ground and lowered his head and just lunged forward, and it was on. And he covered about 40 yards in just like 2 seconds. He was on us, and it was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there's, I counted on a lot of things out there to hurt me. My biggest fear are the hogs. And snakes. I've only seen 3 snakes out there in the 3 years I've been out there, which is really weird. I see a lot of alligators. They don't bother you. Alligators, I have zero fear of alligators unless I walk up on one. But now I'm petrified of bucks.
but a deer.
But a deer. There's
That's-
shit in that thing.
It was a wild card, I didn't expect that. And that thing was fast, dude. And that's a GoPro. That's why I wear a GoPro on my helmet. 2 weeks prior, I had a GoPro on my chest. We heard a stick break. I looked up and saw a black panther, swear to gosh, black panther run down a palm tree 30 feet, about 20 feet off the ground. It jumped into the brush, and it was up to her eyes at that point. It did not move. And I missed it because when I heard the tree break, I looked and my body cam's this way and my head's this way. And I saw it clearly come down the tree. And when I got on the car, I called the ranger and I said, "Hey, I just saw a black panther, and he goes, "Where at?" And I told him where we were. And he goes, "Well, it doesn't surprise me. We saw a black bear run across the road a week before. And we're not supposed to have black bear where we were either."
Yeah.
So, it's
It surprised me because I thought he was going to laugh at you.
No, he asked for the video, and I said, "I think I got it." I was wearing a GoPro, and I went home and scrubbed through it and missed it. And the reaction was pretty much the same. So, and the point is, we're seeing more animals working the corridors than I do when I'm out in the Green Swamp or when I'm out in Ocala. Or, when you get these big, massive areas, and I felt that way up in South Carolina when or North Georgia, when we just, all week long, I was at Tulula Falls State Park at the Gorge. And you get out there in the woods and they're so massive, you just stand there on a trail and you go, where do you go? I feel like if it's out there, it could be anywhere. It's so massive. It's like a needle in a haystack. But in Florida, I think we're so lucky that we have these wildlife corridors that are everywhere. So when people say, "Oh, Matt, you gave away the corridor," look, there's every Bigfooter in Florida has a corridor near them. I would just say we need to be watching the corridor more. Mm-hmm. I've seen more animals, more tracks, had more tinkle moments like that than I have working wide open spaces. And that's all I'm saying. It's just logical to me. It's going to be by the river. There's a game source. You got to move. And it's like hunting, steel one of Max's line, you're hunting, fishing, game in a barrel, at some point. And I tell you, the game cam I got out running right now that's captured blue heron flight, the bobcat at least 9-10 times now. Rocky Raccoon, I've named him, comes out and poses for me and looks around and runs across. I got him 9. I can almost build a log of 7
coyote.
weeks. And then the coyote went across. So I haven't seen stuff like that anywhere else. And to put that camera out there in a 2-mile corridor took us 5 hours to get there.
Yeah.
So it's no joke. And it's the only point where Brian and I have been going out together where we thought, he looked at me, it was 2:30 and we hadn't started heading back now. And he goes, we may have to spend the night out here. And I said, "Well, if you do, you're calling my wife." I'm sure the hell's not picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, we're going to hang out in this really dark corridor where we're 2 hours walking out, and we're on e-bikes, which were useless because you go 10 feet, you have to pick up a 60-pound bike over a log. You go 30 feet, you have to pick up a 60-pound bike over a log. You go another 100 feet, you're picking up. I mean, is it 30 times, Brian, at least picking up
At
bikes?
least, yeah. I would have told her we were at the campground, though. It would have been okay.
Yeah.
And I had a pack on me that day. We had snacks and I had an emergency blanket. I'm telling you, I'm safety first. I got tourniquets. I got stop the bleeds. I carry everything on me. I always look for worst case scenario. I got blister management program, but I don't have a buck stabbing really program. But anyway, I'll have to think of that. But anyway, I just think the corridors are no joke. I think people need to pay more attention to them wherever you are. There's corridors everywhere. And I've heard some people talk about them. But I think that whole bias that, it's only a mile wide, it's only 4 miles wide, it's only 5 miles wide, it's only X and X so many acres, and I just think that type of thinking is illogical. And people are missing the boat.
Yeah.
I
agree on that because yes, New York is a fairly large state and a good portion of it is covered with trees, but there's plenty of farmlands and it's kind of broken up. I mean, you get huge, like in this area of Western New York, Southern Tier. I mean, there's huge areas of woods, right? There's all kinds of state forest around, but it's broken up, and you often wonder. It's like, the place where I had my encounter with Rasta, that is like something like I think it's close. It's like 3,800 and some odd acres of forest land, but within that forest land, there's water, there's all kinds of game and food. There's plenty of cover, and I mean that's a lot of acreage, actually, if you ask me. But it's all broken up. But people are seeing these things, they're encountering these things. They're at least not myself. I haven't found any footprints. I've seen things in that area where I had my encounter that I could say they looked like it.
Right.
I can't say 100% that they were the footprints of the thing I saw.
Right.
Because it just weren't that clear. But yeah, so I mean, this thing about you have to be like in the remotest part of the Rockies, or hell, even if you're referring to New York, the remotest part of the Adirondacks, I think that's true. I think they're going to be, if there's a population here in New York, I think they're going to be in just about any area that allows those three things: food, water, and cover.
Right.
Well, there's places even in like because some parts of the Adirondacks, I mean, there's probably places that literally no human has ever been, but even in like the southern part where I got family who lives up there, and you can go out the back of the house, and I think it's 18 miles before you hit another road, and that's like the more populated area, but typical deer, when they're not in rut, but their home range is 1 square mile. So if something's living on deer, they don't need to go far,
Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Erik.
I've seen, you can go out at night and you'll hear coyotes like crazy howling at each other and communicating. And you go out in the day, and you can go out every day for 3 months, and you're going to maybe see 1 or 2 of them actually in the wild,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Set this up, man. What am I looking at here?
Oh, I was gonna say I want Erik to answer this question, but real quick, show this clip there about what can go bump in the night in Florida. Now, this is where I took Mike Ann. Watch this.
Is that a pig?
Yeah. Now watch what it does. disappears into a water hole. Imagine walking up on that 300-pound beast.
Wow.
Yeah, Florida's no joke.
Wow. See, this is what I'm talking about, man.
Okay, Max has a question in there for Erik about a future documentary, I think. Yeah, I took it out for you.
Hang on. Oh yeah. No, that's not it.
Erik, will you do more paranormal documentary?
There
Oh,
we go.
yeah, I'm thinking about doing a couple more. I need to try to dig into things, and I'm afraid to. I don't want to basically just be repeating myself, Um,
Put some gaps
and
between.
I do enjoy and appreciate. Like I had a great time hanging out with these guys, and I just love being out in the woods, and it was a good time, and I got to learn a lot
It was.
from all of them. And so I would definitely like to potentially, whatever I might do in the future, include that aspect again. But I do also like the storytelling aspect of it, to hear people's stories of their experiences, or to learn about and recount the legends. Unfortunately, um, some of the historical stories of the skunk ape, it's if it's me having to narrate it and tell it, it needs to, just out of necessity, be a little more brief and an overview, because for one thing, I don't have all the details, but it's also not that exciting to just hear me yammer on for several minutes about all of these alleged sightings throughout history.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was
Um,
your background, Erik, for this? What can you give people an overview of where you came to be doing these full time?
um, well, I mean, I worked in television for probably over 20 years, and then just always wanted to kind of tell my own stories, and not necessarily my stories, but just tell stories and make independent films and whatnot. And just I like meeting new people and and talking to people. And I feel like everybody's got an interesting story. And to me, one of the things I really tried to bring to this documentary was to tell, excuse me, kind of the story of some of the folks who have had encounters, or in Matt's case, just a great curiosity and want to learn more. And one thing I appreciate that Matt said, that I agree with myself, is that you just need to be a nature lover and just having fun going out and exploring nature,
Yes.
whether you find anything or not. And I
Yeah.
mean, one thing I've enjoyed from getting to know Matt and become friends with him is seeing all the great wildlife he is catching on his game camera. You know, I mean, how many people have awesome footage of a bobcat walking across a log? Nobody.
Right.
you know.
Right. Yeah. I think you ought to do. Keep on doing what you're doing, and I would be more than interested in seeing another documentary on Bigfoot if you do one. I'm always watching out for what Matt is doing, just because I don't think he's one of the ones out there that I found that he's not blowing smoke up my ass when he's going out. I watch, I watch like Alex Petikoff, because that's another group that goes out. They're not just trying to sensationalize this Bigfoot stuff. They're going out, they're documenting stuff, and they're just filming what they film, man. If someday there's a Bigfoot in it, there'll be a Bigfoot in it. But they're showing you the process of what they're going through, what they're finding, why, this thing is actually this and not what you think it is, and that's what like I said, that's what I appreciate about the whole thing is not this, as Matt would say, Bigfoot on the brain type thing, man. And that's what's refreshing about it. That's what I think needs to be put out there. Because I know, look, I can get Bigfoot on the brain when I'm out camping.
No, we
Absolutely.
all do.
And I have to keep myself grounded. I have to keep myself objective. and and logically thinking, about things. And it's people like Matt, among others, that help me do that, for my own self. And so I appreciate your documentary on this, Eric.
Oh,
Um,
thanks, man.
like I said, it's a great piece of work as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Um,
one of the things that kind of drew me to, after watching Matt's videos before I reached out to him and comparing them to, I'm not going to name any names because honestly, I wouldn't even remember most of the channels that I saw. But, some things I would watch and it's folks out at night and, they hear, I don't know, strange sounds. But to me, I would hear them and I'm like, well, I don't know, last deer season when I was hiking out to, a spot at 4 a.m. to go and sit for sunrise to come up, I heard every spooky sound in the world. And then when the sun comes up, I'm like, oh, it's just this old dead tree over here creaking in the wind, or,
Exactly.
all of the squirrels are getting mad at me because I got my headlamp on, like
yeah,
things make weird noises,
yeah,
and I feel like, unfortunately, a lot of the folks who were probably watching stuff and drawn in by some of the more sensational videos, those folks probably don't spend all that much time in the woods just recreationally.
right. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds, and I'm not saying that maybe some of these recordings that people have that are not something that was they could readily identify as like a known animal. I'm not saying that none of them is possible of being Bigfoot vocals, but they haven't been proven yet to be that. I mean, yeah, it's a possibility, and that's where I leave it. That's a possibility. Maybe I'll have, but I've never heard these sounds myself ever out in the woods. Not to say that I haven't heard weird calls that I couldn't identify, but I haven't heard those, like the samurai chatter type thing, or uh, even the Sierra sounds, which I'm not convinced the Sierra sounds are Bigfoot. I've been vocal about that all for a long time. Not that's nothing against Ron, but I'm not convinced they're Bigfoot. If they are, that's great, but I don't see any evidence that they really are. And I don't hear those types of things, These whoops, and I don't know, people argue with me. I think some of the whoops sometimes, there's whooping cranes, there's loons, man. There's loons here in New York. There's a place called Loon Lake, and they
Yeah.
make an awful similar sound to these whoops that people have recorded and called Bigfoot. And if you take some of them and you manipulate them a little bit or whatever, you can make them sound just a little bit different. Now, I'm not saying that's what people are doing, but I'm just saying that, you know, I don't know. I need the evidence, and that's why I like the way these guys go about it. You know, they're not going to be like, "Oh, that's that's Bigfoot." It's like the tree break thing and the whole structure thing. We talked about that the other night. It was like that's got started because back in the day, I think it may have been Bob Titmus or somebody who looked at a strange tree break and twist and just pondered the question. I wonder if this could have anything to do with Bigfoot. And then somehow from that, it is now where everybody's like, every tree twist and weird break is Bigfoot. Or, and Kathy Strain probably, she pondered one day, I wonder if this could be like a Bigfoot nest when she saw these nest type structures. Just wondered. And now all of a sudden, every nest everybody's finding is Bigfoot. And it's like, and that's gospel. But these guys, I know, would look at something like that and go, well, okay, we know that what they're saying online, oh, Bigfoot nest, but let's
Exactly.
really see if this is what it is.
Right.
Let's see what we can find out that actually made this thing, right? So that's the honesty that I'm looking for, and it's lacking in the community, in my opinion.
You
But
bring up a good point, Joe, because all this stuff may one day be proven or disproven in retrospect. But until we determine that these things actually exist and can
What does it
prove it,
matter?
right? It's
Yeah.
like there's no way, nobody's ever seen one build a nest, or no
Right.
one's ever seen one build a teepee or whoop or anything, as far as I know.
Right.
And
Right.
Matt made me aware of something. I mean, I've been hanging out in the woods since I was a teenager. I had never heard, or at least didn't realize, that a barred owl can
Oh
make
yeah.
a whoop. And
Yeah.
even when you go on like these apps and you go to these like, it's Cornell, right? That does
Yeah.
all the bird calls and stuff. They don't even have that listed on their website.
Mm-mm.
But
Yeah.
yet barred owls will make a very blood curdling whoop. I mean,
Yeah, they do.
especially if you're nearby.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And
it
there's
just
a
echoes
trill.
through the woods.
There's a trill that they make too that sounds so much like a monkey, like a
Yes,
simian primate
it
noise.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard them. And the first time I ever heard them do that, man, yes, indeed. I was out in the area and it was like, I heard this. Now, there was also another owl, different species, that sounded off at the same time as this juvenile barred owl made a call. And I recorded it. It was, well, I was filming. And so it was caught on the audio. The audio caught it on the camera. And dude, when I heard this thing, I was like, holy shit, that's Sasquatch, man. That's got to be a Bigfoot. Got to be. I've never heard that shit before. But, I took it to a guy, and I can't remember. I keep forgetting I think it's Patrick Quackenbush. He's the guy that I saw at a conference, and he's an owl expert.
I was going to say, that name sounds familiar.
He's an owl expert, and he had this beautiful great horned owl with him. This guy is so well versed in owls that he'll make an owl call, and if you put him out in the woods and you didn't see him and he made an owl call, you would think it was an owl and not him. But I met him, and so I was like, dude, okay, you're letting yourself sink into Bigfoot, Bigfoot on the brain thing. You're letting your confirmation bias rule because, dude, I mean, this sound, and I do have, I got to find it. I wish I could play it for you now, but I can't. But I was like, who can I send this to? Who can I vet this through? And then I thought of him, and I sent it to him, and he weighed in on it, and he said, well, you know what? It sounds to me what you got there is a juvenile barred owl. And then he said, there's another owl in there that almost sounds off right at the same time. And he said they can sound, juvenile barred owls especially, can sound pretty weird sometimes because they're like getting used to their voice, right? That was the other thing that got me, was that this was in the complete utter daylight, and I had no idea the barred owls ever sounded off during the day, but they do.
Yes.
And yeah, this thing sounded so weird, but and was I disappointed when I found out that what I had caught on my camera audio was not a Bigfoot vocal? Yeah, I
would have been.
I was disappointed. Because I think I had posted it at one time on my page. This happened a while back, a few years back now. And I posted like, what is this, guys? Is this, and I'm like, and of course I'm hoping somebody's like, that's got to be Bigfoot. No. But, so I was disappointed. I'm like, yeah, no, it was an owl, guys. It was an owl. In fact, it was two owls. Sorry. But yeah, there's all kinds of noises out there, man. And they're not always Bigfoot. Some of them could be. I'm not saying they're not. But we need the evidence so that we know. Maybe next time if I do, if I hear something, I'll be like, hey, I know that's Bigfoot because they proved that noise. They saw, whatever, they got, Of course, if they got it on camera, then we wouldn't even have to worry about it because now it's like Bigfoot's proven. But, but yeah, what you said there, Brian, though, it kind of lays it. It's like, yeah, you've encountered something that you don't know what else to call it. Same thing with me. Same thing with a lot of other people. They've encountered something. They don't know what to call it. Is it a Bigfoot? This is, I mean, and so that may be, and others, but that's not, enough evidence, obviously, to go, Bigfoot exists. So, we need to prove. I mean, it's not proven that Bigfoot exists. So,
Right.
what you said kind of is me, and again, I guess I'm paraphrasing, but until it's shown that these things actually do exist, all this other stuff, the stick structures, whether it could do that, whether it sounds like this, really means nothing at all.
Yeah.
The only benefit it would have, and the same with people who, there's a guy, I'm going to give him a shout out. His channel's called Driftless, and he does a lot of audio stuff, and he does some really good work. And what he says is the benefit of that is, of course, you can't tell exactly what it is, but it might lead you into an area deserving of more investigation and keep you out of areas where you're probably wasting your time, if that makes sense. It kind of, if there's activity there, then it's worth investigating.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I always thought, to kind of touch on what you guys were saying about, until there's proof, you can't really say for sure what it is that anyone that comes forward with stories like these, or of UFOs, or, the Chupacabra or Loch Ness, whatever it might be, it's like they're exposing themselves to an unbelievable amount of ridicule.
Absolutely.
So, like, why would someone want to come forward unless they actually had some sort of experience,
Yeah.
Hey, Erik,
Yeah.
since your video ran, I have had 4 private, maybe even 5 text messages of people telling me of a Bigfoot sighting in basically within 5 miles from where I took you.
Oh, wow.
And I asked every one of them, are they on the BFRO reports? They said no. I have emails of the sightings. I have stories of the sightings. They're not anything that would make me scratch my head yet. Basically, it's alongside of the road, in the ditch, trying to stand still, or it's in the wood line about 40 feet away, moving through the wood line as their car passes at not the same speed, but
Right.
in this place, the car may be moving 40, and they looked over to see a hairy man running probably 15 miles an hour just inside the wood line.
Oh, wow.
Things like that. And so what do you do with that? It just makes me scratch my head more. It's the kind of
Find out
evidence.
more information about it is what I'd want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to
Yeah, but
completely,
I'm not a story chaser. I don't want to go and walk
I
with people
know,
through
I
their
know.
area
I
and
know.
say it was here in the ditch, it was running here. I care only about 15 to 30 seconds of moving image caught by me, caught by
Yeah.
someone that's not going to have an out of focus picture and a crazy story about I had my GoPro on backwards and one popped his head out. And most of that stuff is simple pareidolia and people are being played. If the head's the size of one of those exercise balls you see when you're doing physical therapy, it's probably not a Bigfoot. And
That's
that's
one
the
of
kind
those
of
40
crap.
footers.
And that's the kind of crap that really ticks me off. And then I even said something wrong the other day. And one of the emails was a white Bigfoot. They saw an all white Bigfoot in my area, in my specific area. They even named, Matt, do you know where XX is? And I went, yeah, kind of. I saw a white Bigfoot there. And then I'm thinking, this is the kind of logic I apply. You saw a white Bigfoot. And I didn't say this to them. I just said, thank you very much. And if they're listening, I kind of am, but I don't mean it like this. I'm just applying logic to what I'm hearing from you. But what would happen if, Brian, you and I go out? When we go, we're off trail 90% of the time, either off trail in a kayak, we're carrying our kayaks over logs where other kayakers aren't going. Ron and I carry, we 3 miles in a camp, 1 mile out and 1 mile out, and stay in the swamp overnight just so I can say I did it. We know what we're doing there, but I don't know. But even doing all that, if you put on a white fur coat and you do what you and I do, what is the first thing we do when we get back to our truck with the little sticky burrs and everything else? If I wore a white mink or whatever and went tromping through the woods, what would we look like when we got back to the truck? Would you call it white?
Not unless we were constantly grooming ourselves. No.
That's the problem I have with people seeing white Bigfoot. I'm just applying simple logic to it. You would be covered in black stickers in Florida, head to toe. Head to toe. It'd be impossible for you to see white unless you just like were groomed. And my other little weird thing, are they laying in water? You know, could you be totally groomed, laying in water and get up, and would you still be white running across the road? Maybe. But man, the white Bigfoot thing gets me wondering, you know, how can you be white and be in the woods? White, really not gray? They don't say gray. They don't say off gray. They don't say off white. They say white.
Well, it's possible they could be an albino, but I mean,
I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm just throwing out.
That's a possibility. I mean, we know that there are humans that are albinos, but it's not like it's a very common thing. You know,
no,
so,
it's not very common.
I mean, albinism or whatever. That is possible in just about. We've observed it in lots of species. Right?
Yes.
But
it's not very common. You're right.
It's not very
at the same time, the underbelly of a deer is bright white, and they don't get filthy in the woods. You know,
that's true. I guess it would depend on the type of hair.
You know,
if you've got real fine hair like a house cat or something that picks up everything every time they go out in the yard. Well, it's much different to a dog that has a real coarse coat or something too. So that's something to consider.
I mean, my father's dog is white and with kind of reddish brown colored spots on her. I mean, she'll go out in the woods and, like you were saying, covered in burrs and just filthy with mud. And once she dries out, the mud just flakes right out of her, and she's just got her beautiful white coat back again. It's really astonishing. It's like, oh my, you would come in the house and you would think, oh my God, you need a bath, but you wait 45 minutes and she looks clean as could be.
That's because she doesn't want a bath.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I'm gonna photograph one.
If I didn't have to take a bath, would I?
But Matt and I have this deal as far as his 15 seconds of Bigfoot footage is, if we see one together, I'm going to go after it and try and get it to move. But whatever happens, he better get it on camera and it better be in focus.
Well, you know, like I said, I have no idea. I'm probably one of the people that has, you know, I've been curious about this for 40 some odd years now, and I don't know jack shit about them, but I think if you actually start going towards one, and here again, don't take my advice because I don't want it to be like, Joe said this thing wouldn't hurt me. Hey, Matt, look, I'm going to get, you know.
Wait, let me get my Post-it note out. Joe says, go ahead. What?
I don't know, man. I mean, and I'm just basing this on my own experience. When I mean, it was a pretty scary encounter that I had, and yet here I am able to talk about it. The thing was huge; it could have killed me. It did not. It didn't even move. You know, I mean, so, and yeah, I mean, at least in the time that I was actually able to view it, it didn't move. But you know, well, I mean, I don't think. I think if you were to actually try to chase one, and it may happen with you too, Matt. You're the kind of guy that wants to do those sudden rushes. I think if you were to chase one with a camera trying to get a good picture of it, I think it would really just run away trying to stay out of your camera. So,
you mean my
you know, if you ever do that kind of tactic, I hope you're in better shape than me, man, because you might have to take that thing away, man. You know, and
that's why he's got the zoom lens, and he's going to send me in there.
Yeah, right. Go flush him out, Brian. Go flush him out.
And honestly, and seriously, that would be the whole reason, is to just make sure we get some movement. You know, if you see something try and approach it and see if it moves. And, maybe then you can tell something about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
more importantly, don't look for stuff after the fact. Come back and show the world a still image of something that could be anything from a tree stump to a palm, which I have shown. If you're looking for Bigfoot and you're only using still photography, you're 100% wasting your time and
Yeah.
all of our time.
Yeah.
Everybody and my wife is like beating me up. You're shooting video now. You're a still photographer. You're a fine artist. You've been wasting 3 years now of your life doing this. Are you ever going to be an artist again? And yes, I will. I have a great body of work that is going to be called forest language. I am going to show it in galleries and museums as forest language. And when I give my little talk, in the end, it's going to be, quote, signs of Bigfoot that these people think are Bigfoot. But man, I have some great forest language shots, and I am going to move into that. And I've given myself 3 years. And I want to make something clear that I heard Nikki say on her show. It's not that in 3 years Matt is giving this up. I don't want to be the guy that's been in Bigfoot world for 10, 20, 30, 40 years and never seen or found anything. I've already found my print. I've already had my scare in one of my episodes that I still think something happened to me. Something was going on. I did see this floating head go across when I went out with Tim T in that group. We were in a big group. I have some stuff. Is it evidence? No, it's strange weirdness. I can't explain.
Right.
And I'm going to continue to do that for 3 years. I'm going to put out a documentary similar to what Erik did. I'm going to probably get Erik to voice it. And I'm going to move on. But moving on means I will always be in the woods. And this is what I've learned. I've learned best practices. I moved my mic from my chest to my helmet because now you don't hear me breathing. I moved my GoPro off my chest to my helmet because now if you see it, you will record it.
That's right.
So I'm using best practices like that. A lot of the bird apps and the 3D scan I'm picking up from your buddy Mike Ann.
Mike, yeah, I got to get that 3D scan thing, man.
Mike has taught me a lot. So it's not what Matt has learned and what Matt is doing. And, it's the team I chose to put around me.
Yeah.
Like Brian and Max and Ron and Lori and you and Leon and Steve. I mean, it's the people you choose to hang with to keep you grounded.
Yeah.
And I had my channel monetized at one time. I have made a total $150 off my channel. I stopped it. I don't have any merch. I'm not making money on it. I haven't got it. I've never received a second check. And I just want the audience in the chat to know, if you're following people that are seeing a Bigfoot every time, I hope you're doing it just to be entertained, because that's what we're seeing. And I'm trying to hang out with a different group. I call the 1% at this point, because I honestly do believe 99% of the channels are just crap. And I do get mad that they give me and Brian and Max a bad name as crazy, because all they're seeing are people like that. Imagine if Erik had picked someone else and gone off. And the reason why I wanted to do it too was, what if he had gone off with someone else from Florida who loves pareidolia, and he made this another film, which would have done what to all of us in our credibility?
Yeah.
It would have
jeopardized my own credibility.
And it would have jeopardized his, but he's not in Bigfoot world, so he wouldn't have known that.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I took this as an opportunity to, man, is it possible where someone who doesn't find Bigfoot, who doesn't claim Bigfoot, to actually have a chance to be featured in something by someone on the outside, and let them take an honest peek behind the curtain of what we do?
Yeah.
No, but how cool would that have been when Mike comes down, or Erik comes down, or Brian and I go out, that I'm now with somebody I can trust to say, yeah, Matt, that really happened. We did experience this. And I think we're putting ourselves in a position, and more importantly, we're doing it correctly. We're using better cameras, stabilization. We're running 2 cameras all the time. I got a microphone running all the time on my helmet. It's not like I'm not going to have something. And so
Right.
that's the key. And that's what I try to bring to Bigfoot world. I want everyone to be successful. I want us all to raise the bar. But if we're not going to be using and learning how to use a camera, I would love to bring Erik into this fold. I would love to go out with Erik again. And so just to bring up the quality. But I will tell you, my next project I'm working on right now is a PG film. Something
Yeah.
that we have been told is the holy grail forever and ever. But you know what? I have found red flags. And I have found red flags that no one else has talked about. And I've talked about this offline for 6-7 hours with very qualified people. And at the end, they go, well, you actually got my attention. No one hasn't looked at this. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at that film. I'm not talking about what's on film. I don't want to have a bunch of haters that are all patty saying, oh, Matt, well, that's not a costume. Everybody, I'm not talking about what's on film. I'm not trying to debunk the PG film as to Patty, but I can speak on the actions of the camera and what the camera can and cannot do.
Yeah.
There are red flags everywhere. There's something wrong with the camera work and what was captured and how it was done. And no one in 55 years has brought it up. That's why we need people on the outside looking at this.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're not going to look at it. A photojournalist is going to step out of his work from a TV station and spend all this time, 3 years into this, and I did, thinking the Patty film was looked at top, bottom, and sides. You know what? It hasn't. I got proof. It has not been looked at from the angle I'm looking at it. So everybody can do all the recreations and AI they want of Patty, but it's not going to change what is on the film and how it was filmed and what the film looks like. There's a problem with the film, a big problem. And in time, I may do that. I may like to team up with Erik a year or 2 years down the road and work on that. But in 3 years, 1 year left, I will be out of making films. I will be in the woods enjoying nature and being more like my buddy Ron and Lori, out enjoying nature, recording with 2 cameras, running audio. What happens, but I'm not going to be doing commercial YouTube videos for clicks.
Right.
I want to get in and get out and do this is what I found in 3 years. And I said that the first 6 months of my YouTube channel. I always said, if you've been doing Bigfoot for 50 years, I'm not interested in talking to you because you haven't done anything in 50 years.
Right.
And that's just basic logic. So that's just where I stand. I'll probably go private. I probably really will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, you have a plan. Stick to it, man.
But if I get it 5 years down the road, I will share it. But you're not going to be hearing from me for a decade. I promise.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I think there's other people out there probably along the same lines thinking of you. They might be doing what you're doing or not doing what you're doing. Not exactly. That's not what I mean. They're using your method, right? What I would call, scientific method, logical method, objective method. And you don't see their stuff right now. So,
well, Ron and Lori are a classic example. There is no one in the woods as much as Ron and Lori. I dare you to find someone that has been in the woods longer than Ron and Lori looking for Bigfoot. And guess what? They carry no camcorder. They carry no recorder. They carry no audio device. They just simply want to see it. Again, for Lori's part and for Ron, he just wants to see it for himself because his wife saw it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the direction I'm going to go. I'm going to do my documentary of everything I've done up to this point, all the findings, all the weirdness, take out all the just running a B-roll of nothing happening and just narrate a good piece of this is what I did for 3 years and this is what I found. And right now I got nothing but a couple, I got that footprint, which shook me. But that's what I like about what Erik's doing is he's telling his story. If anybody's not visited Erik's channel yet, go and look at the piece he did of just a human interest piece of him with a woman who had some mental issues, if that's the right word, or she's challenged in a way where she's just chose to live on the street to be away from people, and she plays violin. Is that a fair portrayal?
Yeah.
It's an amazing piece. It's an amazing piece.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think that's about time now. And I want to thank you, Erik, for coming on and talking about the documentary and making the documentary.
Oh,
Matt,
thanks, man.
I appreciate you, man, and I like what you're doing. I believe in what you're doing, and I'm glad you came on the show and agreed to come on. When I asked you, hey, man, let's talk about this documentary on the show. Brian, the same with you, man. I really appreciate you taking out time to come on and talk about all this stuff out here. And question for you, man. You're very curious about what happened, I'm sure, still, and that encounter that you had. Um, Going around with this guy here, what do you think your chances are of getting some answers? There, let me finish the sentence.
Are you talking about to me or are you
Yes,
asking
I'm
Matt?
talking to you. What do
Oh,
you,
okay. Okay.
you gonna keep going out with him and
Well,
looking for it? And
yeah, I think if it's going to happen, I mean, it's hard to get my hopes up because I was in the woods ever since I was a preteen. And, how many decades did it take before I had this fleeting encounter?
right,
So it's not like I expect it to happen again. But I have to admit, when we saw that shadow, that pareidolia, and the more I looked at it, the more I could pull out body details. There was a shoulder and a bicep, and I could see the calf muscle and all this in the shadows. And I was really getting my hopes up. I was bummed out, but
yeah,
I'd rather realize it's nothing than think it was something and then
right, right.
fool
Well,
myself.
that's the rarity, man. That's the
But
rarity. It's good that you can do that, though.
it's it was I won't say it was heartbreaking, but it was very disappointing because I was thinking, man, what are the odds that I would encounter something like that twice? And
Yeah,
and at least, I mean, it wouldn't have been a true encounter, but at least be in the vicinity of something like that twice,
right.
but yeah, I think if and the whole corridor thing, I mean, if something like this is moving in this area, it has to move through this choke point that's only a mile wide. So, in certain areas. So if it's moving through there, I think there's a good chance where we may be able to find evidence of that. If not of it, a personal encounter, at least maybe some evidence of the fact that it's traveled through there.
That something's there. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I get you. Well, good luck to you, man.
Well,
And
thank you, and I appreciate you having me
I'm
on.
gonna keep an eye out for you guys. I'm gonna be watching every time Matt puts something up. I always check it out. So, and you know what? I told Matt he'd never get me down there because of the gators. But I don't know. I
They're
wouldn't mind
nothing,
down
man.
sometime
They're
if I could.
nothing.
But I guess I'd feel safe with you guys enough. I think, as long
They
as I can
they
run
take it
fast.
easy on us Yankees, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, as long as I can run faster than either one of you, I'd be
just
all right.
just be careful where you go swimming. You'll be okay.
All right, guys. Well, thanks. I'm gonna close up the show,
All
and
right.
we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys later.
All
And
right.
Erik,
Thanks for having us.
I want to say
Oh, sorry.
time. No, I
Sorry.
just wanted to thank Erik for his coming down,
Yes.
spending time with us.
All right, if you guys want to hang back a little bit, that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you, chat. Thank you very much for coming and watching this. I think this was very important. It was something that I just needed to do, if not for everybody else. I needed to do it for myself, and and put this up and get it out there, man, because this is really the kind of stuff that we need out there. Not all the fluff, not all the narrative with no evidence and all that other stuff. We need to see real guys out there that are trying to solve this, man. So I hope you guys had a good time watching this, and I thank you for being here and coming here. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, if you're new, because I am building it back up, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button if you liked it, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the bell button, whatever, all that cool stuff is everybody says about their channel. And I'd appreciate it. And other than that, guys, like I always say, don't sweat the petty stuff and don't pet the sweaty stuff. And we're going to be in the forest.